What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Keeping Up with Cash. It's your host, Cash Money Morgan. Hey guys, how the heck is it going? Little camp recap podcast, which it's so funny. I wasn't even on the docket, but Morgan, be so for real. Like, how are you going to spend a week, more than a week, 9 days in Wisconsin and not talk about it? When I was at Churchcamp, everyone was like, when's the pod? When's the pod? Okay, we have to back up way so much because I obviously am like, but this is a highly requested episode from everyone that was at Churchcamp, so had to get it done. Also, I want to get half the people that were there on the podcast, so let's just figure that out. Also, everyone, like, we have 5 merch orders, so I'm trying to figure out how to get wholesale crew necks that are camo. This is thrifted, so if you're a local vintage thrift and you want to collab, because I need dope vintage crew necks, or sweat hoodies, or just like camo merch that we can screen print. So please hit my line. This is me adding you because I want to collaborate that. The fit check right now is actually, in my opinion, a slay. We have the good people listening to good podcasts on the back of this camo shirt. Airy biker shorts and my New Balances. Yeah, you know what it is. Shoes on the couch. It's criminal, but I'm not taking my shoes off right now. So post-gym vibe, not doing that. Anyways, what's up, you guys? We just came off of a solo pod, and yet here I am yapping some more by myself. So when I went to Churchcamp, and we'll break it down so much, but after talking to everybody, and everyone is so sweet, everyone was like, how's the pod? How's the pod? How's the pod? I'm like, it's going great. Thank you for asking. Oh my gosh. But we gotta rewind it. So for context, I grew up going to Fusion Bible Camp in Wapaka, Wisconsin my whole life, like pretty much, not my whole life, but like end of middle school, all throughout high school. And it is a sacred, amazing place in Wapaka, Wisconsin. There is no other place like it in the world, in my opinion. Like, I've been to other church camps. I've been to places in Missouri. I've been to like other things. Nothing compares. Like, it is just amazing. And I don't know what about it that makes it so special. If it's just the Holy Spirit there in the campground, the people, it's so special and I love it. Well, anyways, super on fire for God. Did a lot of things there at church camp growing up. A lot of crazy things, which we'll touch on. But I went back as a kids camp counselor the year, like after my freshman year of college. And then I just didn't go back. Like, I just was living in Missouri every summer. And then I got big girl corporate jobs and had no PTO. And this past job last year, I had an extra week of PTO. So I was like, Slay, I'll go to church camp. And if you listen to the podcast for a while, you know that God wrecked my heart last year and was like, Morgan, yeah, Springfield, Missouri, woo! Little downtown motorcycle Springfield vibes on a, what night of the week is it? A Wednesday night. Slay. Anyways, so last year, God wrecked my heart and was like, you don't spend any time with me. And I'm jealous of every person, podcast thing that does spend time with you. And so I came back to Missouri and was like, accountability partner, changing my life. I will not go back to how I was living. I will be consistent in my faith. And so going into this year camp, it was a non-negotiable, like, I will be there. I'm going to be a counselor. And it's hard because, like, so many of my friends are on sports and I want to hang out with them. But I know the gift and calling God's put on my life. And I know I love getting to minister and, like, be a light to teenagers. I just love people. I think kids and teens are just awesome. And so getting to pray over them and, like, be their friend and be their sports camp leader. Team 16, we're going to come back hungry. We're not done yet, Team 16. Unfortunately, we did not get the championship, but it's just like we did, which we'll touch on that too. We can't even. Anyways, staying on track. So I was like, this year I'm going to church camp. I'm going to be a counselor with Visible Church, my hometown Green Bay church. And I'm ready this year. Like last year, God was like to my head, right? I actually hit myself. But this year I was like, no, I'm locked in. Like, I'm praying about church camp. I'm praying about these girls. I'm praying about what God's doing. Like, I'm rocking my faith. We're on fire for God. We got the small group. Like, we're cooking. I'm ready for what God has this year. And I could feel something big, like, brewing in my spirit. Like, and I was telling the girls on the way there, or even Chloe, my accountability partner, youth leader at Visible Church, shout out my queen. I was telling her, I literally feel like that episode in Soul Surfer. If you haven't seen it, you have to go see it. It's like the end of the show. It's the end of the movie. If you have, I'm going to spoil it for you if you haven't seen it, but it's been like a million years. So if you haven't seen Soul Surfer, that's not my problem. But it's the end of the movie where she's in the ocean and she's about to lose the competition, the surf competition, and she can feel the waves, and she can feel like the big kahuna massive wave coming. And so all the other surfers are like going this direction, right? And just like swimming towards the waves they can already physically see, but Bethany Hamilton like swims towards just like nothing. And everyone's like, what is she doing? She's giving up this competition. What is she doing? But she's swimming because she can feel it. And then sure enough, the biggest wave of the day like becomes a thing and grows and is now, you know, matured into this huge wave, and she just rides it and rides it and rides it. And unfortunately, like they ran out of time, so they didn't count it, but she won. Like mentally, physically, spiritually, like she won. It was an insane experience. It was gorgeous. And like that's how I feel about church camp this year. Was I could feel that wave brewing. Like it wasn't this like if, and, or but, like what will God do? It was, when is he going to do it? Like I could feel this big thing brewing. What I didn't know was that it was going to happen to me. That I did not see coming, was that this big thing brewing was for me. I mean, God touched and used me in so many ways for so many teens and so many, you know, young adults and like whatever stuff like that. But really at the end of the camp and even leading into post camp, God is working so heavily right now, and others pouring into me, and it's overwhelming. It's amazing. I'm grateful, but oh my gosh, wow. Like, whew. It's a lot to handle, and I'm excited for what God's doing, but it's also scary, like whatever. So let's back up. Okay, that's the preview, I guess, of the episode, but let's back up. So obviously I was going to church camp this year, not getting paid this year. Honestly, really blessed, just hashtag blessed for everyone that helped and supported me get there, because it's been kind of a crazy year financially with switching jobs and starting my own business and all that stuff. And so I get a flight and I was like, I'm going. And I flew Delta, city girl up. It was kind of weird because I had like a late afternoon flight, and usually you guys know me, like stay up all night, glam for the airport, chaotic energy, 4 a.m., early flight. This wasn't the vibe. I had like a 4 p.m. flight. I didn't know how to act. Like I was packing, and you know when you're like your stuff is like packed and it's kind of like you weren't rushed and you're like, what did I forget? I don't even think I definitely forgot something. I know that's for sure. But, and I always pack a million clothes, and then I just always end up like asking Lauren to borrow like half her outfits. Shout out to Lauren. But, yeah, so my flights were okay for the most part. I think I had like oh yeah, I remember now. So I flew from Springfield to Atlanta to Appleton, Wisconsin. And on my first flight, I ended up sitting between two guys that were both going to Fort Lauderdale, and they were only in Springfield for business. And so we chatted a lot about Florida and business and stuff like that. Ended up talking to one of them about the podcast, gave him a card, just chatted for a bit, just, you know, networking vibes, like as we do. The rest of my flights was really, I was delayed. It was being pushed back, and I didn't get into Appleton, Wisconsin until literally, I think it was like 11 p.m. And so Appleton is 40 minutes from Green Bay. So my dad takes my grandpa's old T-Bird and like drives in the whip to the Appleton airport. So like we get out of the airport, we get our bags, everyone's going out to their Ubers or their, you know, their Suburbans or their Toyota minivans, and I'm hopping out, and the T-Bird whip is sitting there. Insert picture here. And my dad was like looking so cute, and then he's like, you know, I was like, this is the flyest Uber I've ever seen. So we just throw the suitcase in the back. We're convertible up, driving in Green Bay, Wisconsin to my home, and it was like that scene in Perks of Being a Wallflower when she's just like flying. Like it was just so cool, and I just knew like I needed this week. I hadn't been on vacation in a long time, like I hadn't flown in a while. Just like flying is fun for me, and I miss my parents and I miss my dog, and the whole weekend was just like unplug vibes, you know, frolicking in my grandma's field with the dogs, you know, seeing the birds and the hummingbirds eat the jam that she puts out, just chilling with my parents. My parents are really into Freezy Pops right now. Like my sister put them on. And so my family, like we'll just like sit and watch a movie together and just like, we're just eating popsicles all night. Like that's who we are. So if you want to marry into this family, you have to be okay with eating popsicles on the couch, like watching movies. That's just what we do. And so, church was really good, just getting to see the girls, and then it was time for church camp. And so we drove together, and it was also really special because me, my sister, and my brother were all going together. And this past year, we were all living in 3 different states, and now Tyler's back in Wisconsin. And so I knew God was going to do something, because that just like does not feel coincidental when you're 3 siblings that you don't get to see all the time. Like, we're going to go serve God together. We're all counselors. Like, that was the thing. I was so proud of Tyler because he hadn't been to church camp in a minute, and all of a sudden, like, me and Lauren and Chloe were 3 counselors for one cabin of 6 girls, and my brother is a counselor for a cabin of 10 boys, and some of them, you know, can be a little bit difficult and whatnot. And so I was really proud of him because he had to like step up. Like, there wasn't this, you know, I don't know if I can do this. Like, well, it was just like, you got to do it. Like, just rip the Band-Aid off, you know? So I'm really proud of him because he made friends and he did really well, I feel like, for his first year. And I know it's not easy 100%. And so we went there and just got to worship. You could already tell from a counselor perspective, this year was different. So the first night of camp, Monday night, everyone goes and the counselors, we like get our rules, we get our booklets. Like, if Lindsay's listening to this, I can't tell you the specifics of what we do in our counselor meeting, but I'll tell you one thing we did is we basically, you know, we do like a little prayer, like a little worship thing, but it was different this year. Like, they called us to more. They were like, okay, counselors, we're going to have you guys actually break into small groups and really press in for these students, really pray for them, really like pray and worship yourself, period. And so that's when I knew, like, right away, I just was like, okay, this year is going to be different. Like, something about it just like felt so different. And well, one being I'm different. Like, I'm like a whole different Morgan than I was last year. And I'm expecting stuff, not just going in blindly. Like, I'm like, God's going to move. It's, you know, every day, like, period. What are you moving in today, you know? And I just, being surrounded by so many sports leaders and other counselors and other youth pastors that were all there when I was physically a camper was like tear jerking. Like, there were so many of us that are all best friends, and we all came back and served together and like ministered on others together. And it's something that like is a feeling and emotion that I really cannot even describe. And it's so weird because it's like we all live in different places and we have all these different lives and we come together and it's like no time has passed. And we'll get into this later, but I think like being so far from that has been really, really difficult for me. We'll touch on that later, but in the moment it's so amazing and awesome. And it's like a drug. I love being around these people that we just pour into each other, and we're all pursuing God and like going after consecrating ourselves and like what it looks like to follow Jesus in 2024. And so that was night 1. And then we just kind of were chill. And then boom, it was camp time. And like, I love meeting the campers. I love interviewing them, getting to be their friend, like getting to just kind of welcome them, make them feel, because so many campers like don't want to go to camp. Like, their parents like ship them off and they don't want to go. And they don't know anybody. Like, they don't really know the vibe. They don't know how awesome the camp is. And so I want to be that friend that's like, hey queen, hey king, like, just so you know, my team's going to win, but I hope, you know, like, I'm your friend. Let me know if you need anything, like, blah, blah, blah. So met a lot of people like that first day, and vibes were up. Everything was good. And that night was pretty insane. So typically how traditional camp works is like sermons, God moves, but the last 2 nights are when people like really get saved and like God really goes powerful and people really do altar calls, stuff like that. But really, you know, when you're pressing in God, God's moving regardless. And the first night of camp, Pastor John, he's so awesome. Check out his podcast, the Fresh Leadership Podcast. But the first night they did a huge altar call, massive altar call. And it was kind of like rededicating your life to God, you know, immediately when you get home from camp, like getting an accountability partner, being serious about your faith, like doing next steps, like being so realistic about it. And I loved his preaching because of that, because we need faith and works and action, and you need each other. You need to help each other to grow. Iron sharpens iron, you know? And so that first night I prayed over so many girls, and it was so awesome to just like see girls like break down lies them being told, whether, you know, different assault things, like things that parents have told them, like all this stuff. And then one girl in particular, I'm like also being really sensitive because I don't want to, like, there's so many God moments that happened that I want to keep in my heart, but also I know I'm gifted with this platform. And so I'm trying to be really sensitive of like, I want to share to help, but also not overshare. But I'm sure this in the counselor meeting is like one girl in particular came up to me for prayer, and she is just like sobbing and broken before she even comes up to me. Like she can't form sentences. Just like, and I just start praying over her, and I'm like, tell me what's going on. And literally we just dropped this self-worth podcast where I open up my whole story, toxic situationships, friendship heartbreaks, backstabbing, puking problem. Like I walked through this the week before camp, dropped the episode, leave for camp, close the laptop, scared, like leave. And this girl comes up to me and bar for bar, she tells me her story and ours exactly line up. Toxic this, puking problem, blah, blah, blah. And I'm sitting here and I just told my counselor meeting, I said, 4 years ago, I would yell at God and be like, why did I go through these things? Why me? Why do I have to go through pain so someone else can find you and be a great person and do this? But like, why do I have to be this guinea pig that goes through this? And I learned for blessed disappointments. I learned that God uses your pain. And 4 years later, I'm here praying over this girl. And not only can I pray for her, I'm telling her, look, you gotta forgive these people. Okay? Like, you cannot hold on to this. God can't give you the things he wants to use you for because your hands are holding on to this baggage. Like as hard as it is, like you have to surrender it and let it go and pray for his strength to let it go. And her and I just had a connection that was such a spiritual, deep thing. And we're friends and I want to be there for her. And it was just, I mean, like she could have chosen anybody to pray over her. But she was like, you prayed over me last year and I'm going through this right now and I'm hopeless. And I'm here like, girl, I'm you from the future. Like but when you're in those moments, it is so God. Like what else could explain that? I don't want to hear some coincidental crazy theories. Like, I mean, our stories are like to the description of the T, the same thing. And it's freaky, but God's like, I'm that guy. God's like, this is me. This is what I use. I use your pain for good. Those moments that you cried every day and you threw up and you didn't know what was going on and you were waiting on me, I'm using this right now for someone else. I'm using your pain for my glory. So that was night one. Talk about crazy night one of camp. Like that was wild. And every day things were cooking. Like that first night, and I say this too, like the week before camp, I just kept seeing all these TikToks about like girls stopping listening to secular rap music. And that's hard for me. I love listening to Kendrick Lamar. I love listening to Drake and like other artists. But I've mentioned before in the pod that like I struggle with angerness and being petty. Sometimes it's like really easy for me. It might be hard for you, but it's actually a little bit easy for me. Controlling my thoughts, controlling my tongue. And so, I noticed that when I listen to heavy rap music, like when Kendrick is so mad at Drake, like bar for bar, and I'm quoting it, right? And like it hypes me up. I'm getting PRs in the gym. I notice it like I'm channeling anger I had for people in the past that's not there anymore. But like when I'm singing the song, it like drags. It's like trying to dig up a grave that's been so buried. And I don't like that. Like I'm like, this is not good. And then like it'll get to other different parts of the song. And I'm like, okay, like that's not really, like, why am I singing that? You know? And sometimes we don't even like notice what we're actually singing lyrics wise because the beat is so catchy. And so I already kind of felt my spirit. Like I was like, I probably shouldn't listen to this, but I'm so like, ignore it. And then I go and I'm talking to my friends and literally chatting to Isaac, and he's like, oh, I don't listen to that stuff. And I was like, oh. And then I go into service, and service is like, Pastor John just boom. He's like, what are you feeling with your mind and your spirit? And I was like, okay, all right. 3 strikes, you're out. Like, I'll give it up. So there were so many things, like God was speaking to me all the time. Like it was like this, and then it was something else that I was like, oh, well, it wasn't harming anybody. Yeah, but it's not helping anyone or also like bring glory to God in any way. Your secret little sin, right? And I was like, oh, you need to get rid of that. And then all kinds of different things. But what I didn't notice too was people would like say something and then something else would happen and then someone would pray over me and then it was like, boom, like prophetic word or like, boom, this is what God's speaking to you. And it was crazy. So quick pause in the spiritual stuff. And now we're going to do some like goofy fun stuff. So at our church camp, you basically get assigned a team if you're a counselor. So I was team 16. Shout out to Doc. Doc and I were co-captains. And there's like 18 teams. So the camp is stocked, and whoever wins is like the championship, right? And you play all these games like obstacle course, board ball, water sports, and then you can do like a verse challenge to win points. My team like started strong, but we also had a few mishaps along the way, which was okay. And Doc, one thing about me is that I don't play games unless it's ping pong at Classics Yard. Classics Yard is Springfield's #1 social sport and game center. It is located in the back of Classic Rock Coffee Company headquarters and next door to the Riff. Coffee, sports, music, what more could you want? Located at 1900 West Sunset Street in Springfield, Missouri. Be sure to check them out, play some games, and reserve your event today. Visit www.classicsyard.com. And I agreed, like Doc would be the strategy guy and I would be the motivational spokesperson queen. And so before every single game our team played, we would do a motivational quote. And like, I just have like 10 on deck, right? I love motivational quotes. And then I quoted the Helen Keller quote about the only thing scarier than being blind is having sight but no vision. And I realized that you probably shouldn't do that with a group of teenagers because we would be like, 1, 2, 3, team 16. And then all of a sudden they're like, 1, 2, 3, Helen Keller. Like Helen Keller got more attention from team 16 than probably a lot of like people or media in a long time. And so, and then, I don't know, the team was being crazy. Like they were bringing up the conspiracy and all these things. And I don't know, I guess like going forth next year, I guess I probably won't quote Helen Keller, but also it's a good quote, like #slay Helen Keller, period queen. So that was funny. My cabin was awesome. I love the girls. They're so fun and athletic and funny. And they were just like so fun to be around. And we were all really messy. So like when I was a camper, and maybe I was being lied to because my sister and I were talking about this and I was like, do you remember when we were campers and they had like room checks? And if whoever's room was the cleanest would like get extra points for their team or like you get like a ticket for free. And she's like, Morgan, I think they all made that up so that you would be cleaner. I was like, no way. So someone please message me because like, was that a lie? I was always the messiest camper in my room. I was always the one that slept to the very last minute before Devos. Like I was like, oh my gosh. And then being the counselor, when I see someone in my cabin doing that, I'm like, aw, Pookie, like, aw, warms my heart that you're like in my footsteps. Our cabin was so messy. Like the way that I feel like the boys' cabins were not even that bad. Probably small doors because I feel like boys don't always shower all the time, which some do. So like awesome for you guys. But our cabin was rough. Like it was like food, clothes, this. It was wild, but I mean, whatever, it's camp. But it was nice because like all of us counselors were like on the same wavelength. We were like, look like a clean girl, live like a messy girl. It's okay. It's okay. But yeah, going into a few other things, I'm trying to think of anything else like super crazy off the bat. Apparently one of the first days, like 2 guys collided during board ball. So that was wild. Like injury wise, I think it was better this year, but it was really fun. It's always fun, like playing against your sister or your brother. And so what each day looked like is like we get up, you do devos, we get breakfast, we meet as counselors, and then we'll go have like either a small like service session or we just go straight into sports, and then free time. And then volleyball, whatever. And then, you clean up for dinner and then it's like service again. And then you get free time again. So it's a long day. Like it's a long day. And I remember when I was younger, like I didn't even drink caffeine until I was literally like, I think 20 or 21. So I'm sitting here at 25 like, oh, I wish I could hang out with my friends longer. But also I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so ready for bed. Like, I'm so ready for bed. How I did that as a camper and didn't have caffeine and would stay up like all night, I don't know how I did it. I don't know. And it's just wild. I mean, probably sugar, but I don't know. So that was crazy. But there were so many little moments that were awesome too. Little things like there would be a camper that I would chat to and they just like didn't want to be there and they weren't into it and they just kind of had like a negative vibe because they didn't want to be there. And I get it. Like, it's hard if you don't have, friends you've been there the whole time with or you're brand new and whatnot. And at one point I was in a worship service and this camper was just like not rocking with it. And I asked, I was like, come sit next to me, please. Like this and this. And, we're all chilling. And then I felt like God was like pray for her right now. Pray for her right now. So I sit down with her and I just start praying over her, and I'm like laying hands and praying over her. And then God's like speaking over me, and he's like, say this, say this, say this. And I'm praying like, God, we pray to stop negative self-talk. We're praying that this beautiful daughter of yours like loves herself the way that you created her to be. And I mean, just like to see this camper like weeping. It's like your obedience is so important. Like when God says go, and when you go, it can help change a life. The next day, this camper was like a whole new person. She's walking around, she's happy, she's having fun, she's trying to chat, she wants to hang out. And she physically told this group of girls and was just like, yeah, I mean, I didn't think I was beautiful, and so-and-so prayed over me, and I know who I am, and I don't care what people think about me anymore. Like, it's in the matter of 48 hours, like, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, this is amazing. Like, things are happening here. And there's always that stigma too with like Gen Z or Gen Alpha where it's like, oh, they're lazy, they don't know. It's like, no, they're brilliant, but you have to adapt the way that we teach or the way that we present and expect more out of them. You know, I mean, they're incredible and they're smart and it's awesome. And so speak life and confidence into this generation that they're going to do big and mighty things, because they are. They are. I see people that are 18 years old that want to be like venture capitalists, and they have a lot of money and they go for things and they build and they give back to the community at like 18. So it's like, adults, speak life into these younger people, you know, believe in them, mentor them, give them advice, because they are capable of big and mighty things. So that is, you know, that was wild. But let's see here too. Okay. So all my friends that I grew up with, going to church camp with, we were all counselors or sports people. So we got to expose David Rick here. So since my time in college, I've obviously progressed in my ping pong abilities. And I had a big girl job once that I convinced the president to get a ping pong table. So we had one in the break room, and I had like, it was a manufacturing job. So all these guys are like blue collar, they're working hard, like, you know, they're welding, they're doing stuff like that. And it was like the little me, like office girl. And every time it would be like lunch or like 9 a.m., we have like a little break. I like, and like walk across this huge shop, and I would just like play like 9 different guys in ping pong. And shout out Randy. Randy and I would play like every day. And we always joke around that it was like Karate Kid, because I lost like every day. But Randy taught me a lot about like skill and spin and stuff like that. And so David and I had a ping pong match that was kind of a big deal. You know, he's like, oh, so like you're good now? And I'm like, yeah, low key. And all of our friends put money on David, which whatever. So there was $25 on David, $0 on me, except one camper put like in my cabin, she was like, Morgan, I believe in you. And so in my mind, that's like $100. And so David and I played 2 out of 3 games because, you know, like running out of free time. And it was it was an intense game. If we played 5 games, I think I definitely would have won a few, but unfortunately I did not win. But I think David played like one of the best games of his life. So, I mean, we have to run it back. Like, that's the thing, is we have to run it back. But it was a good game. I was just like, I could not believe no one put money on me. Like, cash money Morgan, that's no cash. But yeah, I don't know. My campers thought it was so funny, and they were like, hee 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 hee. One thing I loved about the sermons, though, is Pastor John is really legit, because I love when a pastor like gives next steps that are so good. Like, it was like, hey, you know, God saying, you know, rededicate your life. Okay, get an accountability partner. Boom. You need to have good friends. Who's in your circle? You're not having good friends? Cut them out and pray for them, you know, like whatever it is, blah, blah, blah. And just like all these step-by-steps. And we had a little list of like people we wanted to pray to help find Jesus, and, you know, really dedicate our time and efforts in prayer and helping them find Jesus. And it was powerful. But one of the biggest and most powerful things of the camp week was the students preaching and teaching the other students. We had testimonials that like a certain different people like went up and were giving testimonials and just talking about things they've gone through, hardships, and then them praying over other students, and then students like calling out. I mean, like, to give an example, like one that broke my heart was there's all these different students, right? And he called us out to have this list and write down people in our life that need Jesus or that are broken. And this one guy, they called him Baby Shaq, because I mean, I think it speaks for itself. But they were like, Baby Shaq, like, who's on your list? And he was like my manager from Dairy Queen. Shout out Almer, blah, blah, blah. And it was just, it's so real, right? There's so many people around in our lives that have gone through such traumatic things and are so hurt and have become like a little bit hard because of it. And you may be the only light in their life. And so it's so important to like build a relationship and be friends with people and like pray for them, but then also like being really intentional. And that was one thing that I feel like I've kind of forgotten about, was like, okay, I'm friends with people now. Like, I need to really be intentional about my time here. Like, you don't know when God's going to be like, all right, your time in Springfield's done. Like, close the curtain. Next, let's go to the next stop. You know, did I do everything I can for the people here in Springfield? And so that was really powerful, just to see these students cry out and talk about the people in their life that are broken and lost, that they're praying for, and they're going to try to, you know, witness to. So that was huge. And, one of those nights. So here's another thing. I know, Morgan, you're like, oh my gosh, this episode, I don't know why the ADHD is like worse tonight than normal, but something that God was doing too was like similar to the music thing. Like, it'd be like people were like talking about it in conversation, and then it would be like smacked in my face during the sermon. And so one thing was, when I was younger, I felt really called to ministry, like youth ministry and stuff like that. And I've served in different churches and stuff like that with youth. I'm always going to have a passion for youth. Like, I think teenagers are like so amazing, and I have a passion for them, but I also have like other sub passions as well that God's put in me. But it's a very sensitive part of my journey, because I was so on fire for God. You know, I went to Evangel, I did things for the kingdom and stuff like that. And then I went through a lot of different hard seasons, and I kind of felt like for me that I was like, okay, well, I'm going to work on myself. I'm going to get my own faith and stuff like that. And especially like going to college here in the Bible Belt. And I've grown up in Christian schools. I've been around Christian families. Like, I grew up for the most part in that kind of environment my whole life. And I feel like I've also grown up in sometimes like very like legalistic environments, where if you're pictured next to a drink, you're a sinner. If you're at this wrong place, you're a sinner. And I think sometimes I've convinced myself that I'm no longer called. Like, I think somewhere down the line, I was like, oh, Morgan, your podcast and marketing. But I remember last year, my sister prophesying over me and saying like, no, those aren't your identifying factors. Like, God's called you to bigger than that. Those are elements of you, but that's not what defines you. God has higher for you. And you're like, oh, okay, Lauren, I'll like, but you know, I've kind of really put that on the back burner. Like, just in my mind, it's like, okay, yeah, God's given me talents, skills, and abilities. I'm going to use them for his glory. But the idea of any kind of like ministry thing has really not been on the table. And I think there's just like little fears about it. Like, I try to witness to people in my life and show Jesus and pray for people. But sometimes, you know, depending on your leadership position, it's like, oh, if you're here, then why are you, you know, how can, you know, are you a Christian? And I'm like, well, I'm friends with all kinds of people. And so I'm getting to know people in different settings and different things like that. And so it's, you know, and I'm giving a very like vague conversation, but what I want you to understand and grasp is that I've grown up in a lot of like legalistic culture sometimes. And I think somewhere inside of me is like, okay, you're not qualified to do ministry because you're not perfect, or like you're not whatever. And it sounds so stupid when you say it out loud, but it's something that is real. And this is something that like I don't even really want to share because it's like mine, but it's not mine, it's God's. So I mean, the last night of camp, basically they did like an altar call and stuff, and the teenagers were praying over the teenagers, and they were like, counselors go around, and it was really for like spiritual gifts, you know, like, you know, prophetic praying, healing, speaking in tongues, like all that stuff. And they were like, counselors go around and pray for people that aren't, you know, like need prayer. But really, like the kids had, like the teens, everyone was covered for the most part. And so Chloe's like, well, can I pray for you, Morgan? I'm like, oh, sure, bro. I'm never gonna turn down a prayer. Starts praying over me, and she basically says to me like, Morgan, I've had like 2 visions this week about you doing ministry, and when you pray for people, I can feel it in you. I can physically feel your calling. And I'm just like streaming with tears because earlier that day, we were all just hanging out and he said something about me, like, oh, like we were literally talking about something like so crazy, like literally probably like Helen Keller. And David just goes, oh, well, like, when are you going to start motivationally like speaking on stages and stuff? And I'm sitting here like, what? But then, for Chloe to say, you're called to ministry and like, I see like evangelism in you and things like that. And I'm like crying to my soul. Like I feel it in my heart because it was just like this, like, I didn't see this, I didn't see this. And then all of a sudden I have all these feelings that are, like, well, you're not qualified for this, Morgan, like you're friends with all people and you do this and you go there and like, blah, blah, blah. Like, what are people going to think of you? And like, you're not pure, like you're not this and blah, blah, blah. And I remember like, I was like, so Pastor John that night told everyone that he had a podcast and, we were like, we have a podcast. It's, you got to talk to, if you have a podcast, you got to talk to someone who has a podcast. It's kind of like, I think like gingers have that, right? Or something where it's like, if you're a ginger, yes, I had a ginger. I don't know. I'm not ginger, but, I was like, I gotta go talk to Pastor John. Like, I just want to introduce myself and like let him know that like I have a podcast and whatnot. And so I go up there, we chat about the podcast for like a minute, and then I just start being like, hey, actually, I need to talk to you about this. Like, this is my story. This is where I went to college, like blah, blah, blah. My accountability partner, Chloe, our co-leader, basically was praying over me and says, I'm called to ministry and I feel this. And I don't, like, I just feel like hesitant. Like I should be so excited, but for whatever reason, I feel weird. And he's praying over me and he's like really like trying to get to the root of like, what's the problem? He's like, why do you feel so unqualified for this? And I'm just like, I guess I'm scared of like, disappointing religious people. Like, is that a thing? Like, I guess I'm like, I don't know. And I think that's the thing is like Jesus, he uses people that are not qualified. Like none of us are really qualified. And what I know is that this extrovert skill he's given me, these like abilities to make friends with literally rocks, like I know that he gave that to me for a purpose so that I can be like, can I pray for you? Like, can I be there for you? I want to love on you. Like, I don't care about your past. And I know like Chloe and I had some deep chats too. And depending on your leadership, like things do look different. And I do feel led to evangelism. And so it's kind of this crazy thing that I did not think that I was going to be like recalled or reminded of my calling to ministry at Churchcamp. So it's very deep to my heart. And the fact that I'm sharing this right now is kind of crazy because I feel like I haven't even told the girls yet. Like I have not even told the girls. I told Eva and my parents, like, nobody else knows. So yeah, guys, feel special. I'm just kidding. So that was very, very eye-opening. And now I want to even chat to a little of a little post-camp vibe, which quick pause on that. Gotta go back to the culture stuff. So someone asked me on the Instagram DM, I like did an Instagram story and I said, hey guys, like, what questions do you want to ask me like before this camp recap pod? And Ethan was like, gotta get on, which we need to get you on, Ethan. And then another girl was like, hey, what were some things that were trendy when you were a camper? Which I was like, a great question. When I was a camper, all the guys would paintball and wear jorts and boots and would be like shirtless. So everyone could like see their paintball scars or whatever. That was like a huge thing. Also, we did a huge camp wrap for Pure Madness. So I feel like I'm saying all these things. Two quirky things about Fusion Bible Camp that like no one really knows. Most other church camps probably don't do this. I don't know. One is called Pure Ministry, which we love. And it's like the Friday, the last day of camp. It's a service that basically is led by teens and whatever they want to do. Like some teens do a lot of like worship or they do like choreographed dance. So back in my day, me and the girls, we had done Fusion's Got Talent. There used to be a talent show and they went away with it. And we worked really hard on this rap. It was to this popular rap song and I like changed all the words to like Fusion Bible Camp, Fusion Bible camp, and then we did like all these, and because we were a group, we didn't win anything. And that was my villain origin story where I was like, I didn't win anything. Like, I'm not doing a talent show again. Like, we're going to do peer ministry. We'll make this better. So me and my girly pops, we had picked out 4 songs, like Apple Bottom Jeans, Body Like a Back Road. We made them all Christian. We changed all the lyrics. We choreographed dance. We were in the lab. We practiced. We worked. And then we did it. And it was like strobe lights, fake money, outfits. And it was so fun. It's kind of cringe. It's on my podcast YouTube channel. So if you scroll way down, watch it. But people for years have come up to me and been like, we use this as a promo. We use your song. Everyone knows your song, like this and this and this. And it was so fun, like such a core memory. So pretty much back when I was a camper, like we did this huge rap, which I would love to see someone rap at one of these pure madness days, ministry days. But that was crazy. Also, one thing that Fusion does is they have this thing called banquet night, which is very niche. So the last night of camp, they have like kind of a fancy dinner and you can like ask a banquet date. A lot of times campers have actually ended up like getting married to each other, which is very cool. And so it's really funny because like even this one camper this year was like, oh, I asked this girl to banquet and then she ended up wanting my girlfriend. Now we broke up. I'm looking for a new banquet date. Like, I don't know. It's kind of funny though, but you like ask a girl to banquet night or a girl asks a guy, whatever, and then you like go together and it's just like show vibes. Like you don't have to like marry this person, but it's like a fun little, I think it's good. I think it like helps these boys learn and girls like learn rejection young or just like rally and like make new friends. And so when I was a camper, like banquet was like a big thing. Like we kind of always like kind of knew who we were going to ask or whatever. And so it still was a big thing this year, but I also feel like it wasn't that big of a thing. I don't know. I mean, I'm not a camper, but that was always funny. Like we would kind of like in our minds, like plan it out in advance. Also, when we were a camper, we would like go to dinner 20 minutes early so we could have like good seating or something. This year, counselor, we're like 10 minutes late. Like it's fine. It's vibes. It's up. So kind of going out as well as a post-camp vibe. So Morgan, what's it like been leaving camp? This year, leaving camp was actually really hard for me. I started to get sad pretty much like Thursday night of camp. And it's also kind of double hard for me because I'm leaving camp and then I also leave my family in Wisconsin. And growing up, like going to college and being so far away, like what am I now? Like year 6 or 7 of like being in Missouri. The most recent years have been hard and I miss my family in Wisconsin a lot. And this year at Churchcamp, just like having so many friends there that are like married, have babies now, and like just going up to camp together and like being close and having like really amazing Christian friends that pour into me and I pour into them. Like it is like this drug that I can't get enough of. And I didn't want to leave it. I was like, I don't want to go back to an environment that like, I don't really have any Christian guy friends or like I have awesome Christian girlfriends, but you know, we're all on our own journey and stuff like that. And so it was hard. And the flight back home was rough. I flew Delta and I'm not in my complaint era. I'm healed from that. But, one of my bags is broken. The other one I got the next day. And I had a lot of crazy delays. So it was wild. The seats were comfy. I did watch How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days again on the airplane. So that was nice. But it was a long day. Like I just prayed and worshiped the whole day in the airport because I was like, I can't go to church. So I like watched church online, listened to the Fresh Leadership podcast, was just like in worship. And it's really like, you know, the church is not one building, bro. I mean, it's the word of God. Like we are the church, like just, you know, praise and worship God, like everywhere you go. I'm also like, why aren't there little chapels in airports? Like, can you imagine? Like, I feel like that needs to be a thing because they have all kinds of stuff in the airports. Yeah, but definitely being back, I'm like, I don't want to lose the sauce of camp. So my accountability partner, we talked today and it was deep. It was really deep. Someone else asked me to be their accountability partner, which I'm so honored. And we're a small group this week, like vibes are up. not listening to rap music. Like, I'm not in any way trying to like flex or glow or anything. Like this, you listen to the podcast, Morgan was not living this way a year ago, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. You can see it in the pod. Like, you can see it in my Instagram. But I need to do what God has me doing. I love like being filled with the Holy Spirit. I love getting to see God heal brokenness. Like I love it, I need him and I can't imagine not. And I think like, do not let your circumstance define you. When there's guys here that are like, I can't do this for a girl. When a guy somewhere else is like, oh, well, I'll move this mountain because I love Jesus or blah, 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 blah. Like do not settle for what your environment like supplies you with. Wait on what God says, this is for you, or I'll pluck you out here and put you somewhere else, whatever it is. So just recently being back from camp, I've really been praying and God's been revealing things, but I came back, I got back super like kind of late Sunday night, just exhausted, immediately go to work the next day, was not feeling the best, like to be honest, down bad, like cramps, just like was not feeling fresh whatsoever, emotional. And then, I'm like, I'm sad post-camp. Am I sad because I'm not seeing my friends? Or is this like something deeper and like trying to navigate that? And I've chatted with my mom and my sister and Chloe, my accountability partner. And we've had some weirdly kind of like similar chats like I had at camp. And God's stirring some things up in me that I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know. Like I'm writing things down and I'm like just praying about it. And if this is what God's speaking to me, I don't know the timeline of it. It could happen in a year. It could happen in a few months. I don't really know. If what God is putting on my heart right now a little bit in that season, if that's what it is, if what we're feeling comes true, none of you guys will see it coming. Nobody will see it coming. So yeah, but just pressing in, bro. Pressing in. So I don't know. And I'm such a planner. And that was one thing that Pastor John was really like, it was so good chatting to him. He basically had prayed over me in that moment, and said, you are qualified in Christ. Like God uses people. God uses the unqualified. Like God uses, you have to obey his calling, consecrate yourself and stuff like that. And he was like, I feel this calling on your life. And I think this next year for you is going to be a roller coaster ride. So buckle up. And that stuck with me because I feel like that soul surfer moment, that wave, yeah, it happened at camp, but I also feel like it's happening in my heart and in my life. And just really fully surrendering everything to God and like giving up control. I am clearly not organized in my life whatsoever. But I love to plan my life out or like trips out and like, oh, well, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be here. I think it's like a anxiety, like it helps with anxiety, but also with God, you can't plan your whole life out. Like you sometimes you can't even plan 30 minutes out. And so just navigating, like having to fully surrender and be like, I really don't know. You always do what's best. I'm just going to trust you. It's really scary. And so I'm trying to do that because I really don't know. All I know what's in front of me. And like nothing ever makes sense. I'm like, when do I get to chill? But it's okay because God is so good and he always works things out and he knows things better than we do. So camp was such a vibe. Everyone's so sweet. To people like that ordered merch, we're going to figure it out, you guys. We're going to get you rocking and rolling. Need to do a pod with Toby and all of them and blah, blah, blah. Gavin. Also, I'm going to insert the clip right here of them during kiddie pool kickball. What up, gang? Cash Money Morgan here on the mic with Toby and Gavin during kiddie pool kickball. Toby, you can't even see it. It's covered in soap. Gavin looks pretty dry for the most part. Got the Golden State on. What's going through your mind right now, starting with Toby?
Man, I'm pretty soapy.
Yeah? How do you feel like your performance was during that match?
Impeccable. There were some bad calls by the ump that very much changed the game. But I think overall, our team did good, and we pulled out with the victory.
100%. Gavin, how did you perform so well but also stay this dry?
I mean, I think I did amazing. That catch where I ran 3,000 miles to catch that right, I got that right. But then I hit it, and I slid to first base, and I messed up my right cheek. And now it hurts, but it's all right though.
All right. The resilience is crazy. Toby wants to go back on the mic again. What else you got to say?
I asked this kid to lather me up with soap, and he literally sprayed the soap on my eyes.
Bro, it was an accident. I got your whole body.
That's friendship, dog. That's friendship. Now I got to ask you this. Camp's a very vital place. How do you stay as drippy as you can? Clearly you're covered in soap right now, but you got this outfit.
drippy.
You've had a lot of, you both have had great outfits this whole week. What's your advice for someone who doesn't know what to wear to camp?
You know what? Don't ask me. Ask him.
Boohoo, man.
Boo man. We'll drop the link to the Keeping Up with Cash apparel. Also, www.freeworld.com. Any women have any thoughts post game?
I think it was a very competitive game. There was some other team rivalry. People thought it's not even teams. And you know what? I think they're just mad because we pulled a dub. So, I mean, it's a tough take, but I mean, I think all of our players played really well today.
Can I say something?
Yes, you can, Jensen.
Team 7-7.
Everything he said was wrong. Team 16, you know what I mean. Any other words, Gavin? You got some Dawn dish soap hanging out right here, though.
No.
I know I said
That's
that.
crazy. Nothing else to say for the mic?
You know what? Stay strong.
Hashtag Jesus saves. Hashtag live, laugh, love. Hashtag Fusion 2024.
check out my clothing
Hashtag
brand.
who dat. Hashtag keeping up with cash every other Friday.
I'm the biggest fan. I'm the biggest fan.
If the audio wasn't great, it's because it was on a voice memo. So relax. All in all, church camp is really an experience like nothing else. You're serving and you also get served, like with the Holy Spirit and the Word and such good things. I'm so grateful that this aspect of my life has been redeemed and God's really used me. And I know some people might be like, oh, Morgan's so churchy, like blah, blah, blah. That's okay. Like I don't take offense if you don't want to listen anymore, or like whatever, but this is really what God's doing. And I'm so like happy and honored when people support just like, and they may not even like rock my vibe, but they're like, Morgan, I see that you're happy. I see God is using you. I see the goodness that's coming from it. Just keep it going. Like keep it going. A few things I want to talk about here that I am passionate about in Springfield, if you want to ever join or be a part, is one, our small group for women. Two, I'm passionate about the homeless ministry, helping homeless downtown specifically, things like that. I want to do things like that. I want to just like, instead of being like, I'm going to pray for you, just pray for someone. I'm also passionate about that. Want to partner with also like other Christian things in the area, whether it's like music stuff, music festivals, I don't even know, all kinds of different vibes. I want to have fun. Like, I don't know how long God's called me to Springfield. I really don't know. But I want to make the most of it for sure. And so if anyone's like, Morgan, I love what you're doing. I want to partner with you. I want to be a part of this. I want to support the podcast. I want to sponsor the podcast. I want to be a part of the mission, the vibe. I want to help you with a venue. There's so many ways you can give. Like even if we did like an adult field day or something and we just like had fun and made friends and it was like kind of a Christian vibe and whatnot, like you could provide the place, the food, whatever it is, and we'll get people there. Like this is what it's about. It's like doing life together and sharpening one another. So I love you guys so much. I'm trying to get the merch on the website added and stuff like that. It's just been a lot, but I'm so excited for what God is doing in me and through me. And now just being back, it's kind of like when you live like your days have an expiration date, which they all do, all of us do at some point. You get a lot more motivated to go out and be a light than I feel like you were before. And that's how I feel right now is I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to go be intentional and do this and do this and this. So when you come back from camp, it's always cool to like be filled and inspired and stuff. But I don't know what God's doing. So that weird, mysterious thing that I was like, ooh, if this is what God's, I wrote it down. I'm praying about it. Yeah, I don't know if that is part of what God's speaking, and I'm still feeling like I still feel confident about that, and he opens all the doors. It will be crazy. It will be a different season for me. It will be different, and it'll be cool too. Everything God does is cool. Sometimes it's like really hard, but it's cool. So I love you guys. I don't think of anything else that's new. Nothing crazy. I mean, I saw my family. I saw the dogs. One thing is really cool is like girly pops from camp, my queen. They're like, hey, I listened to your podcast. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like you live in Wapaka and you listen to my podcast? Like what? Like it's just like so cool when you meet people that like literally actually gain something from what you say. Like the hours of work you put in. I mean, we've been doing this for like 2.5 years. And so, I mean, so much time and effort. And it's like, I always say, for the one listener, I do it because, you know, obviously you want to make money from the podcast and all these things, but like God has like given me the skills and the abilities to do this, and I'm going to do it. You know, obviously I'm not afraid to overshare and whatnot and put what God has on my heart. And I love you guys. If I have to be the voice for that, I will. Like that's just, I will. So I love you guys, and I love like how you love the merch and you wear it. It like literally warms my heart so much. Like it makes me cry. Ending the podcast every same way. Also, I want you to pray for all the shark attacks in Florida. Like, people are going through hard times. I'm so glad that people are surviving, but I know that they're going through hard seasons with being bit. So we need to pray for all the people that are really going to go through, you know, the pain and also being different. Like, that's going to be hard, and just surrounding them. So yeah, the next episode of the podcast, I am really, really excited about. It's also just, it warms my heart so much. So please listen to that one too. Like mark your calendar. You're not going to want to miss that one. Ending the pod the same way. Totally not prepared. Favorite quote, favorite song, and legacy. Favorite quote. I feel like it would be funny if I ended with the Helen Keller quote though, because it's kind of like the bend the vibe. The only thing scarier than being blind is having sight and no vision. And that really is so true though in life, because the only thing scarier than physically not being able to see is seeing and not dreaming, you know, like not seeing the best in people, like not going for it. I don't know, just coaxing, all right, you know, like just going about your day. Like, I just don't feel like that's the way to live. Favorite quote, favorite song, Anthem Generation, Jake Hamilton, best worship song, period. And legacy. I say it all the time, but I think I want to tailor this one to Churchcamp specifically. Is the legacy I want to leave is someone that is being still and does listen to God's still small voice, obeys when God calls me to do something, and never thinks that I'm too good to do something. You know, you don't have too many followers. You don't do too, like be a small, humble person. Go do what God's calling you to do. You are a person. And I think like when I see people like treat me like that, like when they are very popular and blah, 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 but yet they're human to human and they don't let like status and stuff like that get in the way, it inspires me so much. And I know on the latter side, when people that I know were cool and then they get 1 million followers and then and suddenly I don't exist, like it's painful. And so I don't ever want to be like that. I want to be the kind of person where it's like, you need Morgan, you call her up and she's there. So I guess however you can formulate that would be my legacy. Yeah, but I love you guys. Churchcamp did a lot. I like how this could have been like a conversation with Eva and it took me 55 minutes. Like, that's insane. I had a harder time doing the solo pod than the other one. Like, this one I'm just like, da-da-da-da. My brain is hyped tonight. I don't know what is going on. But Missouri is so hot right now. It's cool. But yeah, so God is good. You know, always be looking for people to help be a light. Always be spreading the gospel and showing love. God's going to use you. And remember to be still, because as someone that's like insanely busy, I don't put intentional effort into that, but I need to, because those little moments matter so much. The little moments matter so much, and they can make or break a relationship. They can make or break a moment that God is like right now. I think back to the last episode when I was talking about the guy in the car, the Uber driver that I ended up praying for, and I could have easily just gone back on my phone and was like editing the CapCut video for the podcast. But instead, when he was like, yeah, I'm in debt and it's from the hospital, you know, I'm like, no, I need to hear this guy's story, because God's telling me I need to hear this. I need to put my crap aside and like be locked in on this conversation. And then we ended up getting to pray together. And so just really be mindful of like the things that maybe God is like, I need you to listen to this right now. Like someone's complaining at a Walmart and you're like, oh my gosh, like I cannot. But maybe it's God's like, you need to listen to this because I need you to respond, or I need you to pray for this person or the situation. So, okay. Well, I love you guys so much. Can you believe it's already like almost end of June? summer, it's just not fair how fast it goes. Like, it's really not fair. But yeah, super excited for what God has in store. Summer is a going. Remember to live, laugh, love, and have the best summer ever. Bye.